separate breathing exercises we're going to do. And the reason we're doing breathing exercises is because breath work is a big part of the fascia system. It's kind of like the other big branch of it outside of moving. And the breath work gets into more of the deeper fascia tissues, which we'll go over a little bit later, the different types of fascia that there are. But yeah, so we'll start off with some breath work practices. Two of the breath work practices, you're welcome to sit up or lay down. We'll be in it for just a little bit, so something it's comfortable. You're also welcome to sit up against the wall, whatever it is going to make you comfy. The last one, if you've done it, is alternate nostril breathing. So you kind of have to be sitting up to do the alternate nostril breathing. So for the third one, we'll need to be up. And then I'll talk about fascia for a little bit. There's also all the information I'm going to go over is on your little manual. So I don't really want to like talk about the actual text and like I'm reading a book to you. So, so I might go off script a little bit, but I could talk about fascia for days. So even when I was making this thing, I was like, Judy, simple, like simplify. And because it is, I mean, the building blocks, the simple things, like as you'll learn today, is a big part of it. The way we're walking, the way we're holding ourselves, the small movements have more to do with our structural issues and fascia issues than anything else. And then I was waiting to see, I wanted to see how many people came because I wanted to see how to exactly flow through the rest of the class because we're going to be talking about postural issues. And so I think if we had more people, I was going to have you partner up to kind of like sort of help get an eye for seeing what I'm talking about, kind of like a little bit of practice with like body reading. But since there are just the three right here, I'll probably just kind of take each one of you and sort of have you stand and kind of help the others sort of see, where the hips are going, where the shoulders are going, because then it gets easier to look at yourself as well. And then what we'll do is I'll show you block and ball releases for the prominent postural issues that'll be going on, which I already kind of know because the basics are the basics. Most everybody has a hip that's higher than the other hip that makes a leg longer than the other, and most people have a shoulder that's lifted. Some stuff is a lot easier to see, but the hips and the shoulders are the really big base like wheels. They really dictate a lot. Whatever you have going on in the extremities pretty much is just an extension of what's going on around the chest and the hips. And also the fascia system is like the Wild West. So it could go like this for so many people, and then this one person, it's a completely different story. And again, it's the emotional connection to the fascia as well as that it is a physical thing in us too. So yes. Any questions? If we want to go around and just kind of introduce yourself, just so we know all each other's names.
I'm Christy. Laura. Nice to meet you. And I'm Kelly.
Oh, nice to meet you. And Joe. And Joe. Joe's online. So for the first breathwork exercise, it's deep belly breathing. I'll read you out the instructions before we go into it, just to kind of prep you up. But you're going to find a comfortable seat, whether that's sitting down or lying down. Head supported if you need it. Trying to get as relaxed as you can. You could also use a chair if you need to, or sit up against the wall, whatever feels good for you. You want to try to keep the spine straight. We're going to be breathing deeply into the belly, the lower belly. Try to keep your shoulders soft to avoid tension during this time. Inhaling deeply through the nose into the lower belly. You're going to expand the space for 3 seconds. And then exhale through the nose for 3 seconds. And you're going to repeat this 30 times. On the 30th breath, you're going to hold your breath for 60 to 90 seconds. And I'll go ahead and talk if you kind of need like a guide. If you don't want to listen to me, then do your own thing and do it, and you're absolutely fine. Exhaling all the air out of your belly. Inhale, expand the lower belly. And exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand even deeper. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand. 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 Exhale, release. 10 more. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Try to get deeper in the belly. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. 5 more. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. Last short one. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. This next one, you're going to inhale as much as you can and hold. I've set the timer for 90 minutes, or not 90 minutes, 90 seconds. If you need to let go before it goes off, do not pass out on me. 90 minutes. It's been 30 seconds. Whenever you finally let go, if you need to let go before the timer hits, try to slowly exhale out of it and really let that belly sink down into that space you just created. 25 seconds left. Ten seconds. Feeling the body really slowing down. And relax. And I just want you to take a second to just sort of feel in the body. Note anything where it was difficult to hold or exhale. Feel if there's any space that's opened up in the lower belly or the hip flexors, the psoas. Give you guys about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to set ourselves up for the next one. For the next one, you can also do this lying down. I sometimes like doing these better lying down because I feel like I can expand into the belly better. Okay. And for if you're doing that one at home, typically with that one, they want you to repeat that whole thing at least 2 to 3 times. So if you liked that one, try to do it a couple other times on your own and see it take you a little bit deeper. That's one of my favorites, especially also digestion issues. It's really, really good. Tight hip flexors, tight tummy muscles, pelvis out of alignment, all kinds of stuff. So the next breath practice is called 4-7-8 breathing. Finding a nice quiet space, cross-legged or laying down, arms and legs extended. Take an inhale and an exhale. Close your eyes gently and soften your shoulders. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 seconds. I'm going to do the instructions first, and then I'll go back through and I'll read it out for you or do the timer for you. Feeling your breath expand. And then you're going to hold your breath for 7 seconds, staying relaxed and focused. And then you're going to exhale for 8 seconds. So it's an inhale for 4, it's a hold for 7, and an exhale for 8. Repeating 4 to 8 cycles. So go ahead to start off any kind of breath work exercise. You want to exhale to release the air out of the belly. And then we're going to inhale through the nose. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more round. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale deeply. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Gently relax. Go into a natural breathing rhythm, noting anything that came up, noting which parts were a little harder, whether it was the exhale, the inhale, or holding the retention. And take just another minute or two, allowing all that to sink in, feeling that new space and expansion through the body and the spine, the chest and the belly, through the nostrils and the throat. And whenever you're ready, just gently make your way up to a nice, easy seated. And we will do our last breath work. How's everybody feeling? I like the 4-7-8 too. It's a good one. Okay, so this is alternate nostril breathing. Does anybody not know alternate nostril breathing?
It's been a while.
Okay, great. So there are two different hand placements. You can put your fingers right here, or you can keep them tucked. Yeah, I like to put the two fingers right here, and then you have your thumb on your right, and then your ring finger on your left, or if you got the other hand, it's the other way. It's like left. So the whole concept is you close off one nostril. First exhale. Close off a nostril. Inhale through the single nostril. Close off the nostril with the other finger. Open the other nostril and exhale. And then you're going to inhale through that same nostril. Close the nostril off, open up the other one, and exhale. It's like a little triangle, and then you're going to inhale back up. Close off the nostril, exhale. Inhale through the nostril. Close it off, open the other, exhale. Inhale through the nostril. Close it off, open the other one. Inhale through the nostril. Close it off and exhale. Do 5 more rounds on your own. It's great for balancing the brain hemispheres, for getting the parasympathetic and sympathetic system back in line. Good stress reliever. Really good for getting you centered and grounded. Joe, did you get the workshop manual that I sent you, emailed you? Yep. Okay, good.
I'm curious for the deep belly breathing,
Yes.
if there's a reasoning behind the 3 seconds and 3 seconds, would it still work with 4 and 4?
You can do it, yeah. It's actually comes from Wim Hof
Mm.
breath work. So with his breath work, I guess there is something to kind of like the fast, but I don't really I when I started doing it, I was dealing with lower belly pain and tight hip flexors, so I felt like I really needed to like open up the space. So I definitely extend into it a little bit more. Um, but that like his little formula, that he does for his stuff, they do say to do like with the 3 seconds. But again, like deep belly breathing, it's also diaphragm breathing, which they've taught us, and in that it can be from anywhere from 3 seconds to 8 seconds. A lot of breath work practices, you'll see they'll play with the numbers.
Yeah.
And I think there is a rhyme or reason, but I also think that it's different from everyone. And in my teacher training, what we kind of really focused on was it difficult to hold the inhale or was it difficult to hold the exhale?
Mhm.
And that can kind of tell you body wise, like where your kind of energy is stuck.
Mhm.
So with breath work, that's kind of how I like to work with it too, where I like to play around, with different stuff. And I know like traditionally there's like alternate nostril breathing. There's really not much else you can play with that. It's, kind of specific, but with the counting and the deep belly, that stuff, you can definitely kind of make it your own, which is great too. Because again, like it's for me, for example, my imbalance is holding an exhale in my belly. I really fast, I want to inhale. And some people it's holding the inhale, and for me, I could hold an inhale forever and ever and ever, which is an indication I've dealt with PTSD because it's that survival mode where you're just like, you know, um, and even like pelvic floor issues can be an indication if you have trouble holding that exhale because there's something around the pelvic floor energetically that's not allowing you to really sink down into it. So you can really figure out a lot about what's going on through breath work too, which is another big reason for it, definitely. And with the fascia, you're working with subtle energies, and breath work taps you into more of the subtle energy. So it's easier to feel, I think, things through it as well. Uh, yeah. Any other questions about the breath work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like if it's harder to release at a steady pace, what would that indicate what's going on like in the body? Because you said holding the breath, you're like, I'm good at holding, kind of like you
Yeah.
hold your breath when there's trauma or
Yeah.
stress,
Uh-huh.
but releasing, I'm kind of like, just let it all out. It's hard for me to
Yeah.
control it. What would that indicate?
The controlled release it is kind of where what I find with it, it's like the nervous system. Because to me, from what I know, with the exhale, it's like a relax. And if it's going like that, I think it's an indication that the body's having a hard time relaxing, like being able to just sink. It's kind of like going through like a recalibration where it's sort of like a chaos space where it doesn't know. And it can also be a thing where it doesn't think it can, which can be an indication of like you don't think you can stay still, or having a hard time staying still, or having a hard time sitting in something. That was mine. I noticed that with mine where me having to like go from this to this to this. It kind of connects with your thoughts where you're like, you haven't even finished something and you're already on to something else. That with that the exhale, it does have a lot to do with the being able to sit and endure. It's a good word.
Yeah.
um yeah. Trying to think if there's
And what if it's hard to hold your breath? What would that?
to hold your breath,
Okay.
is an indication that you're having a hard time staying like lifting and staying in the chest. So social nerves. Say if you like walking into a room and it's hard for you to just like expand into the room and to be like energetically open. Um, that is where it's like kind of like, because if you notice when you walk into a room, you'll take a big inhale and like prepare, like you're preparing yourself. So trouble holding that inhale is an indication of where it's kind of like a confidence thing, where you're not allowing yourself the space, which again can be very emotional, psychological as well, where if you were kind of ignored a lot, or just kind of stuff was brushed away, it's kind of like you're like relearning your presence, filling up, being able to inhale and fill up that space and like be there. Um,
Super interesting.
yeah. Yeah. And that is where you see the breath work ties so much into our emotional patterns and habits.
Throat chakra. That's what that makes me think of.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah, it's that being able to pull because you really should be able to like diaphragm breathing. You should inhale in the deeper belly. You should be able to inhale here and then inhale up through the top. So there's like those three centers you should be able to fully move through, and that's where you'll see those catches and like where you can inhale. Some people can really only inhale up to here. It's really hard for them to get, further up. It can also be a lot of knots and like body work kind of stuff. Deep tissue massage and MFR2 can like help break some of that stuff up, which might help lifting the energy up through. Um, yeah, you're gonna learn a lot about your breath. Learn a lot about yourself through your breath. It is. And sometimes with it, when you're really trying to focus on it, it makes it like harder. And I've done that where I'm like, just hold your exhale. And you really, but it's relaxing. It's like you're getting more wound up about it when you really just need to just, it can be hard. Any other questions for breath work? Good. Okay, great. So diving into the fascia. If you didn't know, the fascial system is a continuous three-dimensional web of connective tissue that surrounds, supports, and connects every muscle, bone, nerve, blood vessel, organ, and cell in the body. It is a living, adaptable network that responds to the body's demands, acting like a scaffold that maintains structural integrity. So, it's not important at all. It's, has nothing to do with anything at all. It has everything to do with everything. That's really the description of it. It's even if there is something like a broken bone or something, it's still incorporating the fascia. If it's an emotional issue, it's still incorporating the fascia. I don't think there's really anything that goes on in the body that doesn't incorporate the fascia. But the thing, fascia is, I think, kind of becoming a popular word to say. Why you hear it thrown around a lot. Yeah. I like to tell people that there are three different types of fascia tissue because most people, when they're talking about fascia, they're only talking about the superficial fascia, which is the one directly right underneath the skin. When you see how I'm not moving the skin, but it's moving, that's the fascia. It's gliding. So it's a glide system. And if it has trouble moving like that, that means there's a restriction. So if you like press down and it's hard for you to kind of move back and forth like that, that's an indication that your fascia is tight. When it's healthy, it's very fluid. The skin glides right over it. Superficial fascia, it's about 30% of the fascia in your body. Stretching, yoga, exercise, massage, that all hits the superficial fascia. The next layer is the deep fascia. The deep fascia actually surrounds the bones, goes around the bones, through the muscles, around the organs, through the organs, around the cells, into the cells. So it's deep. And that's the stuff that can kind of tie into your emotional body too. Uh, the deep fascia is a lot harder to release because it's really tough. That's where I like to use the balls and the blocks, and where you really need to be laying on it for at least 3 to 5 minutes in each section because it's the 2 to 3 minute mark that drops into the deeper fascia. So it's like the body goes through this whole processing stage where it's like it hits the superficial fascia, it gets a release. If you can hold for like 3 to 5 minutes longer, you're going to feel a deeper drop. And that's the indication that you're getting more into the deeper fascia. Also, myofascial release stretch therapy, which is what I do, is another really good way of getting into the deep fascia. The deep fascia doesn't respond well, though, to like really aggressive manipulation. It makes it that much tighter. So, and that's why I brought different types of balls because in some places, you can really get in with the harder balls, but the softer ones for spaces that are really sensitive for you to be able to still melt into it because you shouldn't be lying on it like because then it's just how the fascia works is it rearranges and supports constantly. So if you're doing that, it's acting like it needs to come in and support, and so it kind of creates that much more of a restriction, which is a lot of times why exercise will aggravate stuff more, even though you're doing it the right way and everything like that. It's just the fact that where it's at that point in time, it's so wound up that no matter what place it's getting pulled in, it's going to be unhappy, which I have personal experience with. So it is very real. And a lot of times, fascia doesn't show up on any type of scans or anything. So a lot of times, a big indication if you go to the doctor, you get the scans, they don't have, they're not telling you anything. They're like, there's nothing here, but you're having this chronic nerve pain and everything. It's typically a fascia issue. Yeah, because it does not show up, unfortunately.
It's interesting.
Yeah, which is again why it's been missed so much, and why people get sent to specialist after specialist after specialist and they still can't figure it out. Because it is, again, it's working as a whole, which is where you see medicine kind of switching to, where they're looking at it as a whole versus just looking in this one location. Because another tricky thing is you can feel all the pain right here, and the origin of the fascial restriction is all the way over here. And you won't feel a thing. Yeah, you won't feel a thing. And that's the difference between postural issues and pain posture, because you'll get a postural issue and then your body will change to support that for whatever's going on, and then it stays in that posture. So then you create a whole nother posture then you actually start feeling the pain in it. You work that out, and then something else lights up. And a lot of times people will be like, oh my God, it's getting worse. Like it's spreading, but you're actually just seeing the totality of the destruction that is going on. It's kind of like putting the hood up and instead of just being like, oh, band-aid, like it's like, no, like this is a big thing. Like this has twisted your leg, it's twisted your torso, it's turning your shoulder in, it's turning your neck. Older people that I work on, you can see their face when I look down you can see where their nose will start to move this way or that way, or their mouth. You can see, and it's doing exactly the same contortion as the spine. So, and it ends up being like a spiral the way that it tugs on each other. So working with people and trying to figure out where their twists are and stuff, you you see it every time where it's like it's here and then it's here and then it's here and then it's here and it just wraps. And that kind of goes into the fascial restrictions. For what I was talking, fascial restrictions occur when the fascia tightens or binds due to trauma, poor posture, inflammation, or structural imbalances. These restrictions disrupt the fascia's ability to move freely, creating tension that pulls the body out of alignment. So basically what I just explained. um, Yeah, and especially with the posture, which is what we're going to get into, it is things that you don't even realize. And a lot of the issues that we're having are getting caused by very simple things. How you're walking, how you're standing, how you're driving, how you reach for things, how you wash the dishes, how you turn the lights on, like anything that you do every single day probably has to do where you're favoring a side or you're continuing to push into one way or another. Um, So for me, like when I first start working with the body to try to untwist and everything, that's kind of like sort of what I focus at, where I started focusing on is how I was walking, was like one leg stepping more forward than the other, because that can shorten the glute, shorten the hamstring. Like there's all these little things where just the walking, just your gait can really twist things up and mess things up and tighten things up in ways that you would not even realize. Um, Bizarre symptoms. That's what's the yeah. Symptoms may not follow typical patterns, which is exactly what it is. There's a chart for nerve pain with your spine. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like off of the vertebrae. It refers you. It's like, okay, if you have pain right here in this vertebrae, you're probably going to feel it out like this. That's where people started realizing that they were getting nerve pain in all different parts of the body for something that was like right there. So again, when we get into the fascial world, it is very different than the nerves. It can be signaling something from the foot all the way up to the head, like that, much, much faster than the nervous system. Uh, do. Let me make sure I hit everything. Are there any questions right now? I look.
Not a question, but I
Yes.
remember a patient of mine. She was elderly, like late 80s, and she had like all these issues with her spine and her back because for years she would wear her purse on her right shoulder, which you're favoring that side. And then that affected her hip and it just went all the way down the body.
That's a fascia issue.
Yeah, so it got attention in me, like at least switch it. You gotta go
Yeah.
back and forth with
Yeah.
whatever arm. But then it made me think, even like crossing your legs and favoring one leg or the other, or like kind of putting your hand on your hip when you
Yep.
stand in line for a while. Like that's favoring one side and that's gonna cause issues long term.
And it's like a virus. Like once you get it in your head that like you're not supposed to be doing that, you start catching yourself
Damn it.
all the time. And that's why I know you just learn. Like there, I can tell you whatever here, but like just that small little awareness of being like, oh, like why am I leaning all the way to the left? Like why am I? It's huge. It can really change things and really help you as you get older and everything. Yeah, it's crazy how it's very it can be complicated, but then it's also simple. It's just one of those things. Yeah. So some really common postural imbalances. I'm gonna kind of show you. Make sure Joe can see me. Okay. So that first one on the top left, she's saying the right leg of the individual is longer than the left due to either a structural or a functional. So the right leg of this individual is longer than the left. This is how this happens because this is my imbalance. So my imbalance, I go like this,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so what this has done over time, this hip, this hip is pulled up and it's turned out. That's how it started. And then I got the hip to drop, and then it made this leg longer than the other one. And then this stuff started getting pulled over. So then the left hip started getting pulled up. This foot is pinned out. So it started pulling this hip this way. So when I'm driving in the car, if I stop paying attention or if I'm in like traffic or something, this left leg curls like this. So, so typically you will have one foot that likes to step out and it's going to pull the other hip that way. It makes the leg longer. And that's why the doctor will tell you that the leg is longer. It's extremely rare for you to have a leg that is actually longer than the other one. It's just your hip is out of place. And so when this hip goes down, this shoulder goes down. So we've got this. Now, my other one is I go like this. When I lean forward, I go like this. And this is pushing, it's compressing the side and it's pushing me out through here. So this is, and I can feel it, like doing this, like I can feel it. So it's like this lift out of it, right? And it has so much to do with lifting up out of these hip flexors and these toes. You see how this ankle, this is what also developed over time, it sinks. So when this leg spleels out, the arch goes down. So this whole inside of the leg goes offline. All your inner thigh muscles go offline and your glute medius goes offline, which causes a lot of this side hip pain because you're not getting an activation right here. Everything is just. So eventually what happens is you get like, and you can tell right here, I have like a little poof. You see this right here? Kind of, it's gone down.
Yeah.
Happy. But it's inflammation from that hip being like that. And you can even see where it like pulled this one. It's like everything kind of got like shifted over to the side. But yeah, she's gone down. She's gone. I speak in third person to my body because she deserves it. Absolutely. So the shoulder, so what happened with my shoulder, so this shoulder dropped down, this shoulder got lifted up, and then also both of my shoulders are in some way twisted. And how that happens, so this right leg's up, the fascia, it tried to support this leg, so it crawled up the spine because it was trying to support my spine to keep me lifted. And then it just seized all around here, and it ended up kind of like twisting me this way with my shoulder pulled this way. So again, you see how this twist pushed into that. So you can kind of see where they start playing on each other. Yeah. So because there's multiple, the fact that it's a web, you're getting, and the fact that it's rearranging constantly and stuff, it's hard to be like, like this is exactly how it is, and this, because it is constantly moving. But you do tend to have these specific ones where you do have a foot that comes out. You do tend to have a shoulder that drops. And then also when the foot comes out, there's one thing I was thinking of. It'll come back to me. So feet forward, hip width apart. When you walk outside of the heel to the big toe, that is how we're supposed to be walking. Right? If you have bunions and you start walking like this, you'll stop feeling them. Yeah. So back of the outside of the heel to that big toe. And then that's taking it to the feet. Most people's feet are completely bound. It's just what it is. So it's really hard to actually use your feet muscles. Most people don't use them. That's why I walk barefoot outside, and even I'll hike barefoot some, because it actually will force the muscles to work in the foot. So that's a really good way, because when the foot starts to activate, like I'll play with my toes, I'll be like, I'll lift my toes, make sure they all activate. When you start working with the feet, you're going to start feeling these muscles in the legs that have been offline. So the more you can get the feet to open up and to actually use the muscles in them, it's going to start waking up the other muscles in your legs, and it'll also help get your hips back in place too. Because the foot and the ankle, everybody tends to have tons of knots in the feet and the ankle. And it's like it holds. Like you could do as much opening up in here and in here, but if this ankle is still like solid, it's just gonna keep going back. So even if you have, like when I was dealing with hip stuff right here, I would roll out right here, and right here, and I would feel so much. Like even though I didn't even know it was that tight, but I would put the ball right there and it would immediately, I could feel how connected it was, to that hip. So again, it's like, it's never just one spot. And it also brings me to the cylinder concept. The body is more like a cylinder than anything else. So when you're working with it, you want to hit all sides of it. So like if you're working with your leg, You want to hit the quad, the hamstring, the side, and the inner thighs if you're really trying to release all the different webs that are going on. And let's see, feet, hips, shoulders. Oh, and the cervical spine. So, check neck. In yoga, they'll teach you a lock to help with this, where you pull the chin back like this. It's a good one to try to help lengthen through the cervical. But the thing about the cervical spine is it's very interrelated to the hips. So again, like if your hips continue to stay out of rotation, this C1 and C2 are going to continue to give you grief. Wow. And continue to pull forward as well. Because it is like there is whatever stress is going on in the hips, it's just yanking and pulling. You tend to end up coming forward. And I know we do all stare at our screens, but there's also other stuff that comes into play when it comes to the forward. And then also C1 and C2 are directly connected into your jaw.
Wow. Oh, I saw your post on Instagram about that.
Yeah. So this is a really fun thing, interesting thing. Your jaw is directly connected to your hips. So if you can get your jaw to relax or really focus for a second and open the mouth, your hips will relax. It's like a softening that you're going to feel like a. So in yoga class, a lot of times if we're in a twist, I'll cue them to open their jaw. Because people will be like, so they're like, like trying, and anything in life we'll do it too, where it's like, that's not, it's like the opposite of what you're trying, to do. So specifically the jaw and the hips, if you're trying to open the hips and you're grinding your jaw while you're doing it, you're not going very far.
Sometimes they tell you to close your mouth.
Yeah.
But they probably maybe don't have this knowledge.
And also that teaching cue could have been at a time when people didn't clench their jaws, because that's another thing about yoga is, exactly. It's was made in a time, that was different too. That's why it used to always be sitting stretches, but then, we sit all day. So what sense does that make?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting how that comes up too.
It's really cool though.
Yeah. There's a self-release technique too with the jaw, where you can place your fingers right about here. Kind of like it's like a little soft spot, like right in the middle. And you just gently push in, kind of like you were gonna like be pushing your fingers into butter. And then you just gently pull down and give yourself a little traction. This is the jaw release. And yeah, and you can play with this too. I'll go like up to the eyes. I'll go around the ears, behind the ears, up under the jaw too. You can find a lot of really good spots. You have knots in your jaw, and you'll find them. Like I have a knot right here. And what's crazy is when I smile, I have like a dent right here. And that's a fascial restriction.
Oh wow.
So like and with your face too, you'll start noticing there's these little things that like you kind of like if you smile or something, it moves. It's actually a fascial restriction that's like pulling it into place, or it's going. Because I started noticing that when I started doing MFR, was like my face started changing. And it's like the more you start getting yourself in line, your jaw starts to shift, and even your cranial bones. You have fascia between your cranial bones, so your cranial bones will start to move, which is really good because over time your cranial bones get compressed, and which is causing Alzheimer's and dementia and all that. So cranial sacral, if you ever get a chance to do cranial, I do cranial as well, but it's a really good technique to help with all that. And the dural fascia, which is the deepest layer of the fascia, is specifically housed in the cranium and down the spine. And that is the deepest layer. And that's the layer that gets into like the quantum world
Mm.
where it's they don't even know. They're still trying to figure out like why it's so smart, what it's doing. And this is also where they're finding out that fascia is the ultimate organizer of our body. It comes in while we're in womb and designs our organs. It's like a blueprints our entire body. So it's actually the very first thing that starts us. Which is really exciting. Yeah, I know because it makes an organ and an organ is the first thing, that develops. And so it is coming to this space where people are starting to realize how super, super connected everything is and our design is specific, yeah, to our own self. So yeah, it is a physical and emotional memory housing. Actually, it's interesting. I read something recently and I like this. It said the brain houses the memory, the fascia rehearses the memory.
Mm.
And to me, that resonated so much more because it's the movement. It's these same movement patterns we keep putting ourselves into and holding ourselves in, especially when things get emotional. It's another good one. Like if, you're going through something, try to pay just a little bit of attention to how you're holding your body when you're going through that because it can be a big indication as well too where stuck energy is, where your comfort spots are, which probably need to be worked. um, yeah, so it is, you can't, I used to say that the physical and emotional were two sides of the coin, but it's not, it's one. Absolutely. You cannot have a physical issue without the emotional issue attached. It just is what it is. At this point, at least, that's what I have found. Yes. So, any questions right now? I think I went through most of everything I needed.
We don't have that much
I know.
time.
Again, I tried to be simple, but this is why that's why I'm like looking at the text. I'm like, I went off on tangents. But I think that's one of the best ways to teach, anyways. Any questions? We're good? Or we want to get into some ball stuff?
Let's get into the balls.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm thinking the best way is to just kind of give you guys some basic stuff for the hips and the shoulders. And then I think of some other stuff while we're doing it. We can do that too. So this is fun because you get to pick what you want to use. You can take more than one. I think I'll give everybody a softball because I have a lot of these. Sweet. And this one is the hardest. This one's hard too. This is a big hard one. This one is like has kind of a little
Yeah,
softer.
the green one.
That one.
It's the hardest.
And these guys can be fun too if you want to play with them as well. These ones are kind of more specific though, for kind of like big areas. So you could put it like under your diaphragm like that.
Mm.
That way you're not, it's kind of because this area can be so sensitive. So yeah, these are kind of the softest ones, but these can kind of, if you're trying to find like more of like a target spot in the muscle, it can get a little harder to do that one. But yeah. Anybody, do you want another ball? Do you want to try one? I'll take one of the softer ones. The one of the big ones. And Joe, if you don't have a ball, like a tennis ball will work. If you happen to have a tennis ball,
So I have this little ball that was my
that'll work.
toy, but I have a foam roller. Can I use that in some way
Yeah, you can
too?
bring that out. Yeah, whatever you do, whatever you need to do. Um, and it'll be good because as long as you just have something to kind of feel, where we're at. So then if you get a better tool later, at
Yeah.
least you know the spots, right? To put it
Yeah.
in.
Let me grab.
Okay, so starting with the hips, we are going to get on our back. You can see. So this ball is going to go under the back of the left or the right hip. Now, again, everybody's fascial tension issues are different. So if you're not feeling much here, you can lift your leg up and you can kind of roll. You can move that ball further down into the glute as well, if that feels better. You can also bring it over into the side and kind of lean onto it through the side of the hip as well.
What are we looking for? Like, are we trying to look for spot like trigger points or like
Yeah,
it
so
feels good or where it feels bad?
exactly, right? So with the balls, you do want to try to keep the pressure for at least 2 to 3 minutes. You can move around on it, but you do want to try to keep that constant pressure for a good couple minutes. And I'm going to set a timer for you guys so we get an idea of how long. Because also, I don't think people usually don't understand what 3 minutes feels like. We usually have about like a 60-second threshold. That's social media's fault. Um, but yeah, go ahead on to see.
I'm not feeling anything specific. What's a good place to start?
You can maybe move it a little bit closer to the tailbone. Also, if you want to try a harder ball. My leg feels.
Are you supposed to leave both legs straight, or if you're like this, I think
Yeah,
you
you
can
can
it up.
so you can move this leg whatever it needs
Oh,
to do. Yeah,
to feel
there's
better.
really so especially when we're releasing the fascia, allow the rest of the body to kind of move if it needs to, right? So we're trying to free up the space. So if we are thinking in our head like that we have to stay, in this certain position, then that can kind of counter the release. So yeah, I usually sometimes I stick both legs up in the air and roll around on my back. How's that ball? Are you feeling a little more?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out where can I stick it where I can be on it for that long.
Well, and even just like what you're doing right now still works, because you're still keeping that kind of steady pressure going on it. Yeah. Yeah, and this is where breath work can kind of come in and play as well, where again, you're trying to deepen the inhales and the exhales, and releasing this fascia can help make it a little bit easier to hold the inhales and the exhales, can help move that energy, get more fluid with the breath. When it comes to fascia, it's all about melting and softening, and that's how we create more space. And through these things, that is what we're doing, is we are creating more space around the joints. Is the whole point of releasing the fascia. Expansion, expansion, expansion. And whenever you're ready, we're gonna move over to the other side of the hip, or the other hip. Now, again, if you want to come a little further in, like more towards the tailbone, you're welcome to, or if you want to take it more to the outside of the hip as well. Whatever is going to feel good for you. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to flag me over.
Feeling okay?
We've got about a minute left. So any other spaces you want to roll to in that area or explore? Don't forget to keep breathing. Trying to soften the tissue, softening to expand. Got 15 seconds left. Okay, and slowly slide that ball out from under. Anybody feel anything interesting?
Pain.
Yeah. Did you feel it light up any other parts of the body?
Yeah.
Yeah. What other parts did you feel? Yeah, of the spine.
Mhm.
Awesome. So the next place we're gonna go is we're gonna work on the thoracic spine, which is the mid back right here. I'll show you right here. Now, this is a sensitive spot. So I would start maybe with the softer one. This is really going to help open up the chest and the solar plexus and the ribs and the psoas, because if you didn't know, the psoas connects right back here. It goes around the hips and then drops down through the pubic bone, but it starts right here. So a lot of times people have psoas issues and they are like forward like this. It's really hard for them to extend and open. And right here can be a really good spot for you. Yeah, you feel a lot in that one.
Yeah.
That one can also be really good for tight hip flexors, tight lower belly. Um, we're in the deep fascia here. Very deep, deep back layer. This back layer actually extends all the way down past the glutes, down through the back of the legs, and wraps up underneath the feet. This is also the part that causes plantar fasciitis. So plantar fasciitis is caused from tightness from this spot all the way down to the feet. And the feet just talk. They're the ones that yell about it. Yeah.
My chiropractor told me I had a tight psoas, and then more recently I've had plantar fasciitis symptoms.
Yep, because it's like when you have a tight psoas, it starts pulling you like this, and then the back line just starts getting pulled. Depending on if you have other injuries or athletic stuff, from your past, which I did, that will all plays into it. Usually makes it tighter. Unfortunately, being very athletic can also be very detrimental if you haven't figured out what's going on at a certain point. But hypermobility can cause even more issues. So hypermobility can be a really tough one because there is no reference point. The fascia actually creates tensegrity, which is equal balance throughout the body. And hypermobility is when there is no reference to that balance and you pretty much blast your joints over time. And then by the time you actually start getting pain body references, you typically have to get surgery. Yeah. So it's, and then unfortunately, that's where yoga can kind of hinder too, because if you're hypermobile, you're like, see, I can do yoga. It's like the rest of your body isn't ready to do what you're doing.
Where'd you get these balls?
Send you later. I'm on Amazon.
Yeah.
I had one, someone, I think a client gave me one a while ago, and I just recently started working with it, especially with the area we've got that we're working on right now, because that was a big part of what I had going on.
Yeah.
And I love how you can melt more into it. Like I fall asleep with this thing.
This will help me.
I think it radiates farther.
It does. I
It's
do.
like-
It
kinda
takes
gets-
longer, but I do agree.
Yeah, then it kind of starts spreading more than the
Yeah.
smaller ones.
Show Joe this thing, the all ball. I'll send you the link too. And then whenever you're ready, you can switch it over to the other side, just about at 3 minutes. Yeah, that's a spot. In that area, the thoracic, I have learned now after working on bodies for over a year full time, most people's thoracic is super, super tight. Doesn't matter who you are. So I now call it the wall of the back. And I have a theory that the thoracic actually creates more of the upper shoulder and the lower back pain than necessarily the shoulders and the back. Because I feel like the thoracic blocks so much and it's right in the middle. You just feel, you never really feel a lot of pain back there. You feel it more in your shoulders or your lower back. But tight thoracic, it keeps everything in the wrong place. But it's also your biggest support part of the spine, so it is doing its job. Got about another minute and a half. And what I find too with this spot, it helps relieve my hip as well.
Yeah, I would never thought to start there.
Yeah.
I mean,
And this one happens too a lot with people on the table. Like I'll press into places and people will be like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that was so tight. But there are certain certain parts of the body. Jeez, about to be done. There are certain parts of the body that the only way you can stretch them is by pressing into them. And the psoas is one of those. And the pec minor, which we're going to do, is another one of those. And they are these muscles that are constantly in use. And they're like kind of like a balloon that's been like spread apart, like an elastic kind of. And the only way you can stretch it is by actually like pushing into it. 15 seconds left. Slowly roll out of that one. Okay. So for this next one, we're going to be on the belly. And I'm gonna give you a block just in case you want to use the block instead of the ball. Two different ways you can. Oh, great, then I can use one to shift. So again, you can do a block or a ball. This is the quad press. So the quad is part of the hip flexors, and the quad can really pull down here. So remember how like this leg got longer? The quad can be a big reason why it is staying that way too. So it's a really the quads are can keep your hips in the wrong place or they can get released and help your hips go back to the right place. So you can go ahead and get where you're lying down. This is where I've found the easiest way to get into this one is you go ahead and lie down and you take either the ball or the block and you slide it under your quad and then you kind of lift up just a little bit to get there. Now, once you get there, you can stay here or you can kind of shift forward a little bit or you can shift back. It's like you're kind of sliding, right? Where that like how I was showing you on the arm with the skin, right? Or you can roll to the left a little bit. Or you can roll to the side. And again, either ball or block works. What I find the big difference between the ball and the block is the ball does get more targeted, but the block gets a bigger surface area. So both are very effective. I like to do both. But the ball can be fun because you can kind of slide around, like you can sort of slide down and you can feel the knots like right above the knee. The quad is two different muscles, and where they come together, it's like a diagonal, and they glide back and forth across each other. And when your fascia gets tight, it gets stuck, and the quads don't glide across one another, and that's what causes your quads to get really tight. So if you can imagine like a diagonal line coming down across the front of the quad, you can sort of like that center area is a big, usually where you'll feel a lot, where the pressure is. I'm gonna do about another minute and then we're gonna switch to the other quad. So yeah, this is really good for opening up the psoas, opening up the hip flexors, releasing also the back of the hip. If you've got some issues on the back of the hip, it can kind of help lift up out of that so there's not as much pressure on the back of the hip. A lot of times the back of the hip is tight because the front of the hip is tight and getting pulled together. Fifteen more seconds, and then we're going to switch to the other side. Yeah, the quad presses. Switch on over to the other side, slide that ball and block out from underneath. And you'll also figure out real fast which quad is tighter than the other quad. Now, when speaking of imbalances, so if the quad is tighter up towards the top, your hip is probably getting pulled in. If the quad is tighter on the outside, that's probably your hip getting pulled out too far. Again, it can always be different. There is not a set in stone thing with this stuff. The different way of stretching. A lot of times I'll do this kind of work and then I'll do yoga and I'll just pop right into poses.
I was gonna ask you, like, what's the best order in which, or like, even if I was gonna come see you for a massage, like, should my muscles be more relaxed or less, or just?
So with fascia, the more relaxed, the deeper you can release.
Right.
So it is one of those things where if you do stuff that you do before you come, if you can get them more relaxed, you will have the ability to go deeper. That's why I encourage people to still get deep tissue massage, even though I don't think you need it as much as people think you do. But I think you do need it to help release and loosen. So it makes my job easier, and you can get into that fascia faster.
Well, I feel like the reason my massages don't work as well is because the fascia sucks it right back to where it was.
Yeah, and that's where you really see it's so when I work on people, I sit for like almost 15, 20 minutes in one spot because it needs it.
Yeah.
And that's what I find I crave for body work. Like when I go get regular massage, it's too fast. They're moving too fast. I can't feel necessarily what's going on because the more you start to feel, the more you get into the subtle energies and you feel more. And so you can stay in one spot and feel so much. So I do have a lot of clients that they can't get regular massage because their nerve pain is so high that the manipulation just aggravates the nerves even more. And the hold is more like it's like a softening, like it's just sort of like a calming to the nerves more. And when I have a client that tells me about that, I always make sure to keep my touch softer as well. If I have a client that I know needs some deep tissue, I will increase my pressure sometimes just because I know that it needs it and they can handle it. But I am pretty delicate with a lot of my clients. And the beautiful thing about the fascia system and the energetics is the softer you are, the more you do. The more it's like magic, like the way the fascia just starts to unwind on its own. Instead of having to aggressively manipulate it, and that's really where you start seeing the body wanting to heal itself. Where it has this intelligence. It's trying to get back to where it needs to go. We just a lot of times get in the way of the natural flow of the body and then create the other things. But it does. I 100% believe that the body is always trying to fix itself. I do. It is such a beautiful thing. And I think that's why I love this work so much because it kind of gives you the evidence, that is a thing.
This is nice because we can kind of like heal ourselves. Like yesterday, I think I told you I had a lymphatic drainage treatment. Massage, not really massage though. It's $220.
I know.
Yeah,
What did they do? What did they do?
Well, it was an hour and 45 minutes, but the 45 minutes was us just talking about introducing what she was gonna do. But she had like those utensils, like these wands that like vibrate, it's like electromagnetic energy. And it's very light touching. It's very, very light touching, just all over the body to activate the lymphatic drainage. So, I'd wake up, my eyes are puffy, my face was puffy, and I just feel like my lymph nodes weren't working properly. But I'm like, doing all this body work, it is expensive.
It is. Which again, this is the most inexpensive thing, and it does so much. Like a lot of my recovery had to do with this thing and the block, and just paying attention, to what I was doing, and then specifically going into strength training in like a specific direction instead of just like doing, whatever. I want to show you one more one that is a really nice one. So most everybody has a tight shoulder and deals with shoulder stuff. What they don't know is that a lot of times it's the pec minor that is pulling. It's so tight. This pec minor is so tight that you don't have any space on the back of the shoulder. So like this, if you can imagine inside of the body, this thing is pulling the back of this down. So if you were to put the ball behind you, it might aggravate it more because that's what's already happening. And that tends to happen with a lot of people. They'll like be digging into that spot and they're like, it feels like it doesn't feel it, like it still hurts. I always go through the front first
Mm.
because it actually makes space back here. And you might need a harder ball
Yeah.
for the pec minor, depending on what your pec is. Ooh. Timer. So again, your pec minor is right here. Right here. The hard, tough one. And it works all the time. It works when you grab something, pull something, reach something. Anything you do with your arm, your pec minor is getting worked. And it is one of those that this is the only way you can really stretch it. Because again, yoga, they'll do these shoulder stretches. A lot of times it's just yanking even further, like in the direction that is making it unhappy. So I find, especially with my shoulders, this works better. Because my big issue was there was no space back there.
I can feel it a little bit in the back as I move around.
Yeah. And it's deep. It's a deep one too. So then it is again, that's why they have that 3 to 5 minute rule because it's these muscles are so dense. And then a lot of them have been cut off. Like I was saying earlier, they get cut off from blood flow, oxygen, water. So they're numb. And it's very hard to feel. Once you hit that 2 to 3 minutes, fun fact about fascia, it has a crystalline liquid solution around it. And when you press into crystal, it emits a natural electrical current. So when we hold these things for 3 to 5 minutes, we are becoming our natural conductors. And it releases this natural electrical current through the fascia. And then the fascia starts to unwind and unravel and release and go back to where it's supposed to go. It is a really, really cool phenomenon that they have more recently discovered. It's called the piezoelectric effect. If you want to do more research on it, it's really fascinating. Electricity in general, they don't know where electricity comes from. Like they can manipulate it and all this stuff to it, but I think it's actually an element or of more of an elemental nature because we have it in our body. But it is also what kind of, it's like what wakes the fascia back up. Our teacher used to be like, you don't know why the toaster doesn't work, you gotta plug it in. So like, when you work with the fascia, I feel like it is like plugging yourself back in to the outlet.
Felt that sensation with acupuncture. So
Yes.
how does that work in
Yes.
correlation if you want to do both therapies?
So they're really good together because what they have now found is that the main fascial lines lie on the main meridian lines.
Sense.
Yeah, and your trigger points are typically like these fascial kind of like traffic jams, or like where you kind of see them, latticing into each other. Um, yeah, it is very interesting. So what that indicates is that we have been working with fascia for a very long time. We've just been calling it different things. And now it's just now we have the technology in the West to actually show. And fascia is like the evidence of energy. And that's why they don't like it. That's because energy is taboo in the physical therapy world and in the Western medicine world. They don't want to talk about it, but we're getting to a point where it is inevitable that it is something in our body that is like our motor. Uh, and it is highly connected to the fascial system and the nervous system. Whenever you guys are ready, you can move over to the other side. I've got us going over about 5 to 7 minutes, if that's okay with everyone. If anybody needs to leave, that's fine. And then I also find you can also kind of get up in the chest too, right here, and laying on it, kind of like right here, can be a really good spot, and right here too. Yeah, so the sternum, we don't have a lot of muscle tissue in this area, so the fascia likes to grab onto the bone, and that's why it can feel really dense. And that's why the sternum gets so stuck too. Oh, there's never enough time. Got about a minute and a half left. Whenever we get done with this one, we're gonna roll ourselves back over on the back, and I'll do a closing little breath work with you, and then we'll be all done. This is why I'm doing more than one. Never enough time.
Yeah, should like focus on a different area.
Yeah. When I was teaching classes, that's kind of what I would do.
I like that.
Yeah, I would. Would try to not do the same ones every one. It's hard for me to do like another weekly public class, and so that's why I was like, yeah, I'll do this once a month, you know, and see how it goes. But yeah, because there's endless spots. Like once you start getting into the arms and the legs, it's where we tend to have a lot of the small knots too. So like in the calves, you start putting them under the calves and the Achilles. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the point of this class was to like start to give you ideas, just to kind of open up the space of using
Give the
these.
pressure when you're doing the calf, you just put your legs out straight, or what do you put it? What do you put your
So
calf
for the
in?
to get the pressure going.
Yeah.
So I will use a harder ball. One, I'll use a harder ball. Two, I'll kind of like lift myself up a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because you want to get in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like kind of through the side.
They say your calves is your second heart.
I believe it. I believe it. And then even the lower calf, the calf and the Achilles right here, it's really strange. I have clients when I push into that spot, they immediately feel it in their lower back, which was again with the whole like with the fibromyalgia. Yeah, where you can, when you start to unwind the fibromyalgia, you start to see where you have kind of this knot line that goes all the way down the back line.
Isn't fibromyalgia throughout the whole body? Or?
It is.
Yeah.
Technically it is, but it shows up in your feet.
Really?
Most people feel it in their feet.
My mom has that, so this is interesting.
Yeah.
And she goes total Western medicine with it.
Yeah. Where does she feel it the most?
I'm like trying to circumvent that.
Her ribs and her back. And her feet. She has her legs are so swollen, her feet are so swollen. All of her whole body.
Yeah, because the longer you put it off, it just it spreads.
It just takes Tylenol.
Yeah. That's and fibromyalgia is specifically the fascial system. Absolutely. And that's why it spreads that way. And a lot of times you can tell that with things like certain things that all of a sudden they're just in one spot and then they're all of a sudden everywhere. Because even they talk about with like cancer, where you're working with a system that's using the whole body. We're like a Bluetooth system. Like you can plug in one part of the fascia web and it's working the whole web.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool way, again, to just try to get the whole thing back online again. Because really, I think at the end of the day, that has more to do with it than anything. It's
Does
just
diet affect the fascia?
it can,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or we know we can, like massage it out, but
Mhm.
does obviously stress and diet that affects it too?
Stress specifically, because stress is the emotional part of it. Um, And yeah, and it's another tricky thing about the fascial system is if you have an area that has a fascial restriction, which it's like a muscle knot, that is a fascial restriction. It's like a crystallized cap on top of the muscle. The crunchy stuff that you hear, that's the fascia breaking up. That's the crystallized fascia that has hardened over time, that once you start breaking it up, that's like the fascia that's starting to release. Once that like crunchy go, like if you can get those big knots to release, water will come rushing in like you've taken a dam down.
Wow.
So then I always have to tell people to drink a lot of water after the session, because the rest of the body gets dehydrated, because it all of a sudden the water rushes to the places that haven't had anything. And that's why people will feel dehydrated continuously, even when they're drinking water all the time, because it's impossible to get to these spaces, which is again what leads like to all these other things over time. Yeah, which that again, that's where body work and even you can get little instruments. I like this thing. This is the fascia blaster. I got this a long time ago and didn't really know. They were like, it gets rid of your cellulite. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, cellulite is fascia restrictions or fascia issues. So, like, for my hip, what I have done personally for my routine is I take this thing and I get into the hip joints, the front of the hip joints. I come down on the quads, and then I get the side and then the back, and I'll kind of go like that. This will help break up like scar tissue type stuff, and even just the real tough fascia that's kind of like, so you could even like take this thing, dig in there, get on the ball, or do the ball, do yoga stretches. Again, it's very, very prominent where people, when they start releasing their fascia, they start popping into yoga poses they were trying to get into for years.
Wow.
Because you're trying to force into a space that there is no space. Once you make the space, then the hips and the shoulders are like, okay, let's go. And that's where yoga ends up hurting people more, because we're like trying to crank ourselves into these positions that there is no space. So it ends up creating this whole other fascial, kind of thing. That's what happened to me too. I went through my whole yoga teacher training and everything, and then started having all these issues, and not one yoga stretch helped. I was like, what?
What's wrong with me?
Yeah, I was like, what is this? But nobody ever told me to go get body work.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the other half, of the pie, where I was like, wow, I had no idea that my PTSD was still so intense, that I can barely sit on the table, that I have so many knots everywhere. Like, but I can do compass pose. So they don't really teach you that well in some ways about yoga in the West. But I'm just kidding. There's a lot of great teachers. But stuff gets missed. It does. And when you're dealing with the body, it can be tricky. So, no, not one thing ever really works.
With that, what's a good amount of time to spend on each spot?
Like 10 strokes.
Yeah. Yeah. I can like some areas that are pretty tough, like I'll kind of really grind into them. But do be careful. I try to use it over. If you do it directly on your skin, put oil on. If not, you can put something like tights on and you can kind of glide it without it. But you do have to be careful, because it will bruise a little bit if you do too much. There's also all kinds of like, this is a power tool. There's these little metal things you can get too. My weapons. So like this came with the wooden thing. You can like get into your wrist and like get into like because a lot of the joint areas you get fascia restrictions in there. This thing too, I'll run like through the back right here. It'll get like right between there.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all little spots that fascia likes to get stuck and restricted. So you can get like little tools like this, like the scraping. People do the dry brushing.
That's
Yeah.
a big
Uh-huh. Yep. All of that, it just keeps it. Even if you're not getting into the deeper fascia, working the superficial is still you're still being a part of getting the system going.
Even like the big, what are they called? The rolling thing.
Foam rollers.
Yeah.
Yep. Those work. Just be gentle. If you get to a place with the foam roller where you're like feeling that clenching, then I would maybe leave it for another day. Yeah, or pick a different area, for it. I do like the foam roller under the. I mean, that's another one good one with the block. We'll do this on another day, but there's a whole thing here
Like
through the
your
ribs.
lymph nodes.
Yeah. Or the nerve system in your armpit is one of the most insane looking things if you ever take time to look at it. People hold a lot in their armpit, which is another spot for the ball too. Right in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you come to future classes, we will work further into the extremities and everything. But yeah, it's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff to show. Oh, it's always hard to just pick some stuff.
Well, this is awesome because I'm flying home on Thursday to see my mom. Maybe I could just plant the seed a little for her. Like, stop taking all this Tylenol and ibuprofen. It's.
Well, and even for stretching for people, they're like, I can't stretch. Be like, you can lie on a ball.
Yeah.
You can put this ball under you and lie down,
That's so my mom right there.
Yeah, like turn on your favorite show and just, check out. I feel free to check out. Like you don't have to be intentional about it when you're starting, like you're at a different level. You're just really trying to establish something. So yeah, like baby steps, easy steps. And when you're dealing with people, you gotta try different things. But yeah, I always most clients, like ones that really can't do a lot either, I am always giving these things away. Take this. Play with it. Or my one friend, I was like, this is your new best friend for this week. Also your feet.
Yeah.
Balls are the feet.
Huh.
Again, I have a lot more stuff. So next class we'll dive even more into that. If you have any like friends or anything that want to come, I'll make sure to bring this original manual so that they can have a copy. So I'm not gonna keep going over information, but I'll have this. I recorded this. So, if somebody wanted to watch it before coming, or if you wanted to rewatch it. But yeah, the next class, which is going to be the first Sunday of every month, we'll be doing different things.
Awesome.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Since we're late, I'll skip the last little breath work. We'll do more later. But yeah, you guys are all done.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for coming and giving me the chance to give some information.
Yeah, it's hard to find the time to do that,
Which
So
is
you
why
get-
I like this
like-
environment where you can just sort of come in,
Right.
slow down, talk about it, work with it.
Right, and then you have a dedicated time to actually do it.
Yeah.
And then that's
yeah.
what my problem
Yeah.
is. I mean, I waste so much time in the morning and I go, why don't you just do something? You've been telling yourself that for years, so
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen,
Even those like lumbar pillows that you put, those big pillows, I every morning after I get up, I put it under my lower back. And I just